In the heart of Central Africa, long before modern borders, before colonial flags were ever planted in the soil, a mighty empire rose from the sands near Lake Chad. An empire built on trade, scholarship, conquest, and eventually, betrayal and collapse. This is the untold story of Kanem-Bornu, a forgotten superpower that ruled for over 1,000 years. Longer than Rome. Richer than many European kingdoms. But what happened? Why did it vanish from the pages of history? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear might change how you see African history forever. Let's take a journey, back over 1,000 years, into the vast, sun-scorched landscape of the Sahel, just northeast of what we know today as Lake Chad. Here, in this challenging terrain, survival itself was a skill. But among the shifting sands and scattered acacia trees, a group of nomadic pastoralists, the Zagawa people, began to do something extraordinary. They started to settle, they began to trade, they formed alliances. And from the dust, the roots of a kingdom began to take hold. Now, they weren't building massive pyramids like the Egyptians, or grand stone cities like the Malians would later do. But Kanem was quietly rising, its heartbeat tied to the Saharan trade routes. Camels became their ships. The desert, their ocean. And salt, gold, ivory, even enslaved people, these were the cargo. As traders flowed in from the Maghreb and the Nile, so too did ideas, languages, beliefs, and most importantly, influence. And just when this simmering pot of culture was ready to boil, a leader emerged from among them, Maidugu. He wasn't just a chieftain, he was a visionary. Under Maidugu, the Kanem people started organizing politically. They created hierarchies, appointed judges, and began to formalize control over trade. But the real revolution in Kanem's story didn't come until a few centuries later. Around the 11th century, a man named Mai founded the Safuwa dynasty, a lineage that would rule for nearly 800 years. And with him came a seismic shift. He embraced Islam, not just as a personal faith, but as a state ideology. This decision wasn't just religious, it was strategic. By becoming Muslim, Kanem gained diplomatic access to the Islamic world. Suddenly, their leaders were recognized by Cairo, Mecca, Tripoli. They received scholars, envoys, and even soldiers. It's like a small tech startup today joining Silicon Valley. Overnight, their network explodes, and the world begins to take notice. Kanem was remote, yes. Harsh in climate, and unforgiving in geography. But don't be fooled. This was a kingdom of wealth, knowledge, and connection. It became, quite literally, the Dubai of medieval Africa. A place that shouldn't have thrived by location alone, but did because of visionary leadership, trade, and strategic alliances. This was the birth of Kanem. And its rise was only just beginning. Welcome to the 13th century, a time when Kanem wasn't just surviving the harshness of the Sahel. It was dominating it. At the center of this surge was a ruler whose ambition knew no borders, Maidunamu Dabalemi. He was not your average king. Dabalemi wasn't content with ruling just Kanem. No, he wanted an empire that stretched across the Sahara, one that could rival even the great Islamic caliphates of the East. And he made it happen. Under his reign, Kanem exploded in territorial size, stretching across modern-day Chad, Niger, northeastern Nigeria, Libya, and parts of Sudan. But conquest wasn't his only tool. Dabalemi used diplomacy, trade, and religion like a sword and shield. He solidified Islam as the official faith of the empire, not just through preachers, but by military campaigns and strategic alliances. He sent ambassadors to Cairo, Tripoli, Fez, establishing Kanem's position as a legitimate Islamic kingdom on the global stage. Imagine a king who's part Harvard-educated intellectual, part Roman strategist, and part Meccan spiritualist. That was Dabalemi. He wasn't just expanding the borders, he was expanding the mind of the empire. The capital, Njimi, became a hub of learning. Its scholars read texts from Baghdad, debated with clerics from Timbuktu, and helped shape the Maliki school of Islamic law in Africa. And that title, Mai, was more than ceremonial. The Mai was a spiritual father, military commander, and chief judge, all in one. He ruled through councils of elders, Islamic scholars, and war chiefs, balancing ancient African customs with Islamic jurisprudence. It was a fusion of tradition and theology, and it worked. At its height, Kanem was one of the most respected powers in Africa. It wasn't just feared, it was admired. Foreign traders came from as far as Morocco, Egypt, and Yemen, seeking its horses, gold, and wisdom. But as every historian knows, with great power comes even greater pressure. The golden era of Kanem was dazzling. But even the brightest stars eventually burn out. But no kingdom shines forever. Just like a candle burning at both ends, Kanem's strength became its weakness. The very success of the empire bred rivalry, rebellion, and civil war. By the late 14th century, internal conflicts erupted. The Safuwa dynasty split, and different factions fought for control. It's like a family business turning toxic. Brothers turning on each other. Cousins fighting over the throne. And while they were fighting amongst themselves, external enemies saw an opening. The Bulala people, former allies turned foes, struck from the east. They pushed the Kanem rulers out of their heartland. In a moment of both tragedy and brilliance, the dynasty did something radical. They moved west of Lake Chad. Now welcome to Bornu, the phoenix that rose from Kanem's ashes. Around the 15th century, a new capital was born, Ngazagamu. The Safuwa dynasty, though displaced, reclaimed their glory. And under the mighty Mai Idris Aluma in the 16th century, Bornu wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Idris was a genius. He reformed the military, introducing firearms obtained from the Ottomans. He streamlined justice, introducing Islamic courts, tax systems, and governance reforms that were centuries ahead of their time. Bornu became one of the most efficient Islamic states in Africa. Imagine a ruler like Napoleon, fierce in battle, but obsessed with order. Trade routes revived. Scholars returned. And Kanem-Bornu became a beacon of strength once again. But then came the slow poison, the 19th century. Europe was industrializing and Africa was fragmenting. Kanem-Bornu, isolated from the coast, missed out on gunpowder empires like Wo and Asante who had access to European weapons and trade. Then came the Fulani Jihad under Usman Dan Fodio. The Sokoto Caliphate rose in the west, and Bornu became a target. By 1808, Ngazagamu fell. The Kanem-Bornu Empire, once mighty, was broken. Though it lingered as a shadow under local rulers, the glory was gone, and with the arrival of colonialism, what little was left was erased. Today, few people talk about Kanem-Bornu. But its legacy lives on in subtle ways. The Kanuri people still carry echoes of that ancient culture. The northern Nigeria's Islamic heritage? Bornu helped shape it. The concept of structured governance, law, and Islamic scholarship in the Sahel? Bornu again. But beyond the facts, there's a bigger lesson. Empires fall not just by outside force, but from within. When unity breaks, vision fades, and power turns into pride. Kanem-Bornu ruled for over 1,000 years. That's longer than Britain's empire, longer than the Ottomans. So the next time someone tells you Africa had no history, tell them about the warriors of Kanem, the scholars of Bornu, and the kings who dared to build an empire in the desert. Until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Niger Trends TV for more historical tales like this.